Guys, you absolutely will not believe what happened to me on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my entire life. I was getting ready for my wedding to Michael, a dream that had been years in the making, when I discovered he had been cheating on me with my own maid of honor, Jessica, for 6 whole months. The discovery happened in the most brutal and devastating way possible. Through an intimate video he carelessly left open on his laptop that I borrowed to check our wedding reception playlist. In that exact moment, my entire world completely collapsed around me, but at the same time, a cold determination I had never experienced before took complete control of me. I knew right then that this betrayal would not go unpunished, and I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly what kind of people they really were. Before I continue this absolutely insane story that will leave you completely speechless, please subscribe to this channel and smash that like button right now. This is extremely important because YouTube's algorithm needs to know that you genuinely enjoy this type of real-life content so I can bring you many more authentic stories just like this one. Also, tell me in the comments section below, have you ever been cheated on by someone you trusted? Or do you know someone who has gone through this kind of devastating betrayal? Because what I did next will absolutely blow your mind and probably inspire you if you've ever been in a similar situation. Just imagine discovering the ultimate betrayal exactly 2 hours before you're supposed to walk down the aisle in front of all your family and friends. Well, that's precisely what happened to me on my wedding day. Let me explain how this whole nightmare started and give you the background of our relationship. I had been dating Michael Thompson for 4 incredible years, and we'd been engaged for a year and a half, planning what we thought would be the perfect wedding. We spent over $60,000 on this wedding celebration. I worked countless overtime hours. My parents even sold a piece of property they owned, literally everything to make our shared dream come true. Jessica Williams had been my absolute best friend since our college days at UCLA. She was going to be my maid of honor, and she had been helping me with every single detail of the wedding organization for months. She even slept at my house the night before the wedding, specifically to help me with all the final preparations and to be there for moral support. I mean, can you possibly trust someone more than letting them stay in your home the night before your wedding? Well, apparently that trust was completely misplaced, and I was about to find out just how wrong I was about both of them. That fateful morning, at exactly 7:30 a.m., just 2.5 hours before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, I grabbed Michael's MacBook to double-check that our carefully curated playlist was properly loaded into the church's professional sound system. When I opened the laptop, there was a video file paused right there on the screen, and at first I assumed it was something related to his work as a marketing consultant. But when I clicked the play button out of simple curiosity, expecting to see some boring presentation, it was an extremely intimate and explicit video of Jessica, my supposed best friend, recording herself in a very compromising position while sending sexual messages directly to my fiancé. She was literally in my own house, in my guest bedroom where I had graciously let her stay, recording this disgusting content to send to Michael on the morning of my wedding day. The timestamp on the file clearly showed it had been recorded just a few hours earlier, sometime during the night while I was sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of what was happening under my own roof. I felt my stomach completely turn inside out, but somehow I managed to maintain my composure and stay calm despite the shock. I immediately started thoroughly searching through his entire laptop and discovered a hidden folder simply labeled J, obviously standing for Jessica, the manipulative bitch. You guys have absolutely no idea just how much incriminating material was stored in that folder. It was like a complete archive of their affair. There were hundreds of photos, dozens of videos, screenshot conversations from WhatsApp, Snapchat messages, even email exchanges between them. After carefully examining the timestamps and dates, I realized this sick affair had been going on for exactly 6 months, which coincidentally was precisely when Michael and I had started making the final preparations for our wedding. While I was What absolutely revolted me the most were their private text conversations where they were literally laughing about me behind my back like I was some kind of joke. Jessica would write things like, "Poor little Sarah, she has no idea what's really going on."
And she's so naive and trusting, it's almost pathetic. While Michael would respond with messages like, don't worry, babe, after the wedding, I'll figure out how to handle the Sarah situation. And she'll never suspect anything. She's too busy with wedding planning to notice. Handle the Sarah situation? I was nothing more than a problem that needed to be resolved and discarded. They had actually made detailed plans for him to continue cheating on me during our honeymoon in Hawaii, and then after a few months of married life, he was going to ask for a divorce, claiming that he had only gotten married because he felt pressured by me and our families. My entire life, everything I believed about our love and our future together was nothing but an elaborate lie, and these two pieces of garbage were laughing at my expense and treating me like I was some kind of fool. In that life-changing moment, I made the most important decision I had ever made. I was going to destroy both of them in the most public and humiliating way possible. I took several deep breaths to center myself and thought with crystal clarity. If these two want to put on a performance and play games with my life, then they're going to get the show of a lifetime. I immediately copied every single file, photo, video, and conversation to multiple flash drives, making sure I had irrefutable evidence of their betrayal. Then I calmly walked back to the guest room where Jessica was still sleeping peacefully after her late-night recording session for Fiancé, and I put on the performance of my life, pretending that absolutely nothing had happened. When she finally woke up and stretched, I plastered the biggest fake smile on my face and said cheerfully, "Good morning, my amazing maid of honor. Are you ready for the most important and special day of my entire life?" The way her face lit up with that completely fake and cynical smile as she hugged me and said how excited she was, honestly, if I were a violent person, something terrible might have happened right there in that room. But I had something much more devastating and satisfying planned for both of them, and I knew that patience would make my revenge infinitely sweeter. I went through my entire morning routine completely normally, allowing Jessica to help me with every detail of getting ready. The wedding dress, the professional makeup application, the hairstyling, absolutely everything. Every single time she said something like, "Oh my God, Sarah, you look absolutely gorgeous," or "Michael is so lucky to have you as his bride," felt like a knife being twisted in my heart. But I smiled brightly and thanked her graciously for her support. My parents arrived at the house completely emotional and excited, along with my other bridesmaids, everyone radiating joy and happiness for what they believed was going to be the perfect wedding day. Meanwhile, I was literally dying inside from the pain and betrayal, but I was simultaneously planning what would become the most epic and satisfying revenge in wedding history. I discreetly called my cousin David, who owns a professional audio-visual company, and told him I had prepared a very special surprise presentation to show during the wedding ceremony that would be absolutely unforgettable. He immediately assumed it was going to be some romantic slideshow or video montage and was thrilled to help me set everything up with the church's projection system. We arrived at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church in our white limousine, and the scene was absolutely breathtaking, with over 200 guests in attendance, everything decorated exactly as Michael and I had planned during those months of preparation. Michael was standing confidently at the altar in his expensive tuxedo, waiting for me with that charming smile that I had once thought was completely genuine and filled with love. Jessica was right beside me in her beautiful bridesmaid's dress, holding my elaborate bouquet of white roses and baby's breath, playing her role as the devoted and supportive best friend to absolute perfection. When Father Martinez asked the traditional question about whether anyone present objected to this marriage, the entire congregation chuckled warmly because it was obvious that no one would possibly have any objections to our perfect union. Little did any of those 200 people know that the bride herself had some extremely shocking revelations to share with everyone present, and this wedding was about to become the most dramatic and unforgettable event any of them had ever witnessed in their entire lives.
The moment for exchanging our personal vows finally arrived, and the church fell into a respectful and anticipatory silence. Michael spoke first, delivering what sounded like a beautifully heartfelt speech about eternal love, unwavering fidelity, lifelong companionship, and building a future together filled with trust and devotion. Every single word that came out of his lying mouth was a complete fabrication. But there he stood, in front of God, our families, all our friends, and 200 witnesses, solemnly swearing his eternal love and promising to honor and cherish me for the rest of our lives. The guests were visibly moved by his performance, with several people wiping away tears of joy, and my mother was practically glowing with happiness and pride. When my turn came to speak, I took the wireless microphone in my slightly trembling hands, looked directly into Michael's eyes, and began with a sweet smile. "Michael, my darling, today is truly a very special and memorable day, and I want everyone here to understand exactly why." Everyone in the church was expecting a romantic and emotional declaration of love, but I had something completely different planned that would change all of their lives forever. I continued speaking in a clear, steady voice that carried throughout the entire church. "Today is special because I have finally discovered who you really are, Michael, and what kind of person you've been hiding behind that charming smile." I could see his confident expression beginning to falter and confusion starting to creep across his face. "I discovered that for the past 6 months, you have been having an intimate sexual relationship with someone who is supposed to be very close to both of us, someone standing right here beside me." The silence that fell over the church was absolutely deafening. You could have heard a pin drop as 200 people held their breath in shock. Jessica, standing right next to me, had gone completely pale, all the color draining from her face as she realized what was about to happen. And because I believe that everyone here deserves to know the truth about the kind of people they're celebrating today, I've prepared a very special presentation that will show you exactly what Michael and Jessica have been doing behind my back. I gave a subtle signal to my cousin David at the back of the church, and the large projection screen that was supposed to display our romantic engagement photos suddenly illuminated with a very different and much more shocking image. The first photograph that appeared on the large screen was a crystal-clear image of Michael and Jessica kissing passionately in his BMW, taken in the parking lot of the very shopping center where we had spent weekends choosing decorations and flowers for our wedding. The reaction from the 200 guests was absolutely indescribable. There were gasps of shock, angry murmurs, confused whispers, and several people actually stood up from their seats in disbelief. My mother screamed from the front pew, "Sarah, what in God's name is this?" while my father jumped to his feet with an expression of pure rage that I had never seen on his face before. But I was far from finished with my presentation, and I wanted everyone to see the full extent of their betrayal. "Please, everyone, wait. There's so much more evidence to see," I announced calmly into the microphone, my voice somehow remaining steady despite the chaos erupting around me. The second image that flashed onto the screen was an even more explicit photograph of the two of them in bed together, taken in the apartment that I had helped Michael pay for with my own hard-earned money. The look of absolute terror and desperation on both of their faces was worth every penny I had spent on this wedding, and I knew that this was only the beginning of their complete and total humiliation. Michael frantically tried to grab the microphone from my hands, his face flush red with panic and embarrassment, but I gracefully stepped away from his reach. "Now, everyone in this church will finally know exactly what type of man you really are, Michael, and what kind of friend Jessica has been to me," I declared, my voice growing stronger and more confident with each word. His entire family was sitting in the front rows in complete shock. His mother, who had always treated me like her own daughter and had been so excited about gaining me as a daughter-in-law, was openly crying and screaming. "How could you do this to Sarah, Michael? How could you betray this wonderful girl?" Jessica's father, a respected businessman in our community, couldn't handle the shame and humiliation of seeing his daughter exposed as a homewrecker in front of everyone, so he literally ran out of the church, unable to face the judgment of all the other guests. But I was far from finished with my presentation, and I wanted everyone to see the full extent of their betrayal. "Please, everyone, wait. There's so much more evidence to see," I announced calmly into the microphone, my voice somehow remaining steady despite the chaos erupting around me. The second image that flashed onto the screen was an even more explicit photograph of the two of them in bed together, taken in the apartment that I had helped Michael pay for with my own hard-earned money. The look of absolute terror.
When that explicit video began playing on the large screen for all 200 guests to see, the chaos in the church reached absolutely unprecedented levels. People were shouting, some guests were covering their children's eyes and rushing toward the exits, others were frantically taking out their phones to record this unbelievable drama, and still others were yelling angrily at Michael and Jessica. Jessica finally tried to make a run for it, attempting to escape through a side door, but her own brother caught her by the arm and forcefully said, "Oh no, Jessica, you're going to stay right here and face the consequences of what you've done to Sarah." Michael had turned completely white as a sheet, and in desperation he actually dropped to his knees in front of me, grabbing at my wedding dress and begging pathetically, "Sarah, please stop this insanity. For the love of God, let's go home and talk about this privately like adults." I looked down at him with complete disgust and said in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "Talk? You mean like how you and Jessica talked about me last night while she was in my house? Like how you both laughed about what a naive fool I was?" The public humiliation I was inflicting on both of them was absolutely perfect, and I could see that their reputations were being destroyed in real time in front of everyone who mattered in their lives. At this dramatic moment, my father, who had been watching everything unfold in stunned silence, walked purposefully up to the altar and gently took the microphone from my trembling hands. For a moment, I was terrified that he was going to tell me to stop this public spectacle and handle things privately, but instead, he surprised everyone by saying in a voice filled with pride and righteous anger, "My daughter has shown more dignity, strength, and self-respect than these two pathetic excuses for human beings combined. Michael Thompson, you are hereby forbidden from ever coming near my daughter again, and if I see you anywhere near our family, there will be serious consequences. And Jessica Williams, after everything Sarah has done for you over the years, after all the trust and friendship she gave you, you will never be welcome in our home again." The entire church erupted in thunderous applause for my father's words, and I felt an overwhelming surge of love and gratitude for his unwavering support. In that moment of empowerment, I pulled off my engagement ring and wedding band and threw them both directly at Michael's shocked face, declaring loudly, "You can keep Jessica, Michael. You two absolutely deserve each other, and I hope you'll be very happy together in your pathetic little life built on lies and betrayal." Michael's mother, Mrs. Thompson, who had always been like a second mother to me and had spent months excitedly planning this wedding, came rushing over to me with tears streaming down her face. She wrapped me in the tightest hug and whispered through her sobs, "Oh, Sarah, my dear sweet girl, please forgive me. I had absolutely no idea my son was capable of such cruelty and betrayal. The man standing over there is not the son I raised, and he has brought nothing but shame upon our entire family." She then removed the beautiful antique necklace that had belonged to her grandmother, the same necklace she had given to Michael to present to me as an engagement gift, and she placed it gently around my neck, saying, "This belongs to you now, Sarah, because you have shown more honor and character than he ever will." Many other members of Michael's extended family approached me throughout this chaos to express their support and to completely distance themselves from his actions, telling me that they were disgusted by his behavior and that they would always consider me family regardless of what he had done. Meanwhile, Jessica's side of the church had completely emptied out, as her entire family had fled in shame and embarrassment, unable to face the social consequences of her actions. I took the microphone back from my father and addressed the stunned congregation one final time. Now that absolutely everyone here knows exactly what kind of people Michael and Jessica really are, I want to share one more important piece of information with all of you. The apartment that Michael lives in, it's actually in both of our names, which means I have every legal right to make.
I walked out of that church with my head held high and my shoulders back, still wearing my beautiful wedding dress, being applauded and cheered by nearly every single person who would remain to witness this incredible drama. The reception that had cost us over $60,000 was completely paid for, and all the vendors were already set up and waiting at the country club venue. Do you think for 1 second that I was going to let all that money and planning go to waste? Absolutely not. I took the microphone one last time and announced to everyone, the party is definitely going to continue, and it's going to be even better than we originally planned. Anyone who wants to celebrate with me the fact that I just escaped from a lifetime of lies and betrayal is invited to join me at the Riverside Country Club. More than 150 people enthusiastically decided to stay and celebrate with me, and we transformed what was supposed to be my wedding reception into the most epic liberation party anyone had ever seen. It turned out to be the most fun, authentic, and joyful party of my entire life, surrounded by people who truly loved and supported me. During the party, my phone was constantly buzzing with text messages and calls from people expressing their support and admiration for what I had done. Several women approached me throughout the evening to tell me that they had always had suspicions about Jessica's character, mentioning that she had a long-standing reputation for being manipulative, opportunistic, and completely untrustworthy around other people's boyfriends and husbands. Multiple men came up to me to share that Michael had always been known as a player and a cheater, but they admitted they never imagined he would be stupid enough to betray someone as wonderful as me, especially on our actual wedding day. My phone was literally never silent for the rest of the evening, with calls and messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, all reaching out to congratulate me on my courage and to tell me how proud they were the way I had handled such a devastating situation. Word of what had happened was spreading like wildfire throughout our entire community, and by the end of the night, it seemed like everyone in the city had heard about the dramatic wedding exposure. While I was dancing, laughing, and celebrating my newfound freedom with my family and real friends, I learned through various guests that Michael and Jessica had been completely humiliated and basically run out of the church by their own families. Michael's father had apparently told him that he was no longer welcome in their family home until he made things right with me, and that he should be ashamed to show his face anywhere in public after what he had done. Jessica's mother was reporting.
The most satisfying part of my revenge plan was executed the very next morning when I woke up feeling more refreshed and empowered than I had felt in months. I immediately called the property management company that handled our apartment lease and informed them that I will be exercising my legal right as a co-tenant to terminate Michael's occupancy of the premises effective immediately. Since both of our names were on the lease, but I had been the one actually making all the rental payments, I had every legal right to remove him from the property. I also contacted the BMW dealership and the finance company to inform them that I would no longer be making payments on Michael's car, and since he had no income or assets of his own to cover the payments, the vehicle would need to be repossessed within the week. The business that he had started with my initial investment of $40,000, I executed my legal rights as a co-owner and took complete control of all business assets, accounts, and operations, effectively leaving him with nothing but the clothes on his back. Michael's attempts to contact me became increasingly desperate and pathetic over the following days. He called my phone over 300 times in the first week alone, leaving voicemails where he alternated between begging for forgiveness, making threats, and claiming that he was going to hurt himself if I didn't take him back. He sent me dozens of text messages every day, ranging from love letters promising he would change, to angry messages blaming me for overreacting, to pathetic pleas for financial help since he suddenly had no money or a place to live. I saved every single message and forwarded them all to my lawyer, who informed me that Michael's behavior constituted harassment and stalking, and that I had grounds for a restraining order if I wanted to pursue one. Jessica had completely disappeared from social media and had apparently left town immediately after the wedding disaster, with rumors circulating that she had gone to live with a distant relative in another state where no one knew about her reputation as a homewrecker. About 2 weeks after the wedding incident, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Michael had been forced to move back in with his parents, but even that arrangement was humiliating for him because his mother had made it clear that he was not welcome to sleep in the main house. Instead, she made him set up a sleeping area in their garage, telling him that he had brought such shame upon their family that he didn't deserve the comfort of a real bedroom until he found a way to make amends for his behavior. The business that I had taken control of was actually performing quite well financially, so I decided to keep it running and hired a professional business manager to handle the day-to-day operations while I maintained ownership.
The apartment sold much faster than expected, and after paying off all the wedding-related debts and expenses, I actually ended up with a substantial profit from the entire ordeal. In a strange twist of fate, Michael's betrayal had actually improved my financial situation significantly. The most rewarding aspect of the entire situation was discovering how my story had resonated with people throughout our community and beyond. Multiple women reached out to me over the following months to tell me that my courage in exposing the truth had inspired them to confront their own cheating partners and demand the respect they deserved. A local women's support group invited me to speak at their monthly meeting about standing up for yourself in difficult situations, and I was amazed by how many similar stories other women shared during that event. Several divorce attorneys in the area began using my case as an example in their consultations, showing potential clients how important it is to protect yourself legally and financially when you suspect infidelity in a relationship. The story became so well known in our city that it was often referred to as the wedding day revenge or the bride who wouldn't stay silent. 6 months after the wedding that never was, both Michael and Jessica were dealing with long-lasting consequences that extended far beyond just social embarrassment. Michael had lost several major clients from his previous freelance work because word had spread throughout the business community about his character and trustworthiness, and potential clients didn't want to risk working with someone who had such a public reputation for deception and betrayal. He was struggling financially, having to take odd jobs and temporary work just to make ends meet since he no longer had access to my income or financial support. Jessica had attempted to return to our city after a few months away, but she found that her reputation had preceded her, and she was unable to find employment or rebuild her social connections, forcing her to leave again and start over somewhere completely new. Meanwhile, I was thriving both personally and professionally, running a successful business, living in a beautiful new apartment, and feeling more confident and self-assured than ever before.
Exactly 1 year after the wedding incident, I had a chance encounter with Michael at a local coffee shop, and the contrast between us was absolutely striking. He looked like he hadn't slept properly in months. He had lost a significant amount of weight, his clothes were wrinkled and ill-fitting, and he had an overall appearance of someone who was struggling with depression and anxiety. When he saw me, he actually had the audacity to approach my table and try to start a conversation, but I simply looked right through him, as if he didn't exist, and continued reading my book. Later that same week, I learned from a mutual friend that Michael had been unable to maintain any serious romantic relationships since our breakup, because every woman he tried to date would eventually hear about his infamous wedding day betrayal and would immediately lose interest in him. Jessica had apparently gotten married to some guy she met in another state, but according to gossip, her new mother-in-law had somehow discovered her history and had made such a scene about it that the marriage had fallen apart within just a few months. Today, 3 full years after what would have been my wedding day, I can honestly say that discovering Michael's betrayal was the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it was incredibly painful at the time. That day wasn't just about a wedding that didn't happen. It was the day I discovered my own inner strength, my self-worth, and my refusal to accept anything less than complete honesty and respect in my relationships. I learned that I never again had to tolerate being treated poorly or being taken advantage of by people who claimed to love me. The business that I took over has continued to grow and prosper. I've purchased a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood. I travel whenever I want to explore new places, and most importantly, I sleep peacefully every single night, knowing that I stood up for myself when it mattered most. Michael, on the other hand, still lives with his parents in their garage, and his mother continues to tell anyone who will listen about the shame and embarrassment her son brought upon their family. The most important lesson I learned from this entire experience is that you should never ever accept betrayal or disrespect in silence, hoping that things will somehow get better on their own. When you discover that someone you trust has been deceiving you, don't be afraid to expose the truth and let people see who they really are behind their mask of fake charm and false promises. People who cheat and lie are counting on their victims to be too embarrassed, too hurt, or too scared to speak up and reveal what's really been happening. In my case, the public exposure was absolutely the best possible revenge because it showed everyone in our community the true character of both Michael and Jessica, and it prevented them from being able to manipulate and hurt other people in the future. They lost infinitely more than I ever did.
They lost their reputations, their family relationships, their friendships, their social standing, and their sense of dignity and self-respect. If you made it all the way to the end of this incredible story, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to this channel, because I plan to share many more real-life stories about people who refused to be victims and who stood up for themselves when others tried to take advantage of them. I want to hear from you in the comments section. Do you think my revenge was justified, or do you think I went too far in exposing them so publicly? Have you ever been in a similar situation, or do you know someone who has dealt with this kind of betrayal? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, because I love hearing from viewers who have their own stories of standing up for themselves. And always remember this important truth. Someone who is willing to cheat once will definitely be willing to cheat again, because that's just who they are as people. The only difference now is that everyone in my city knows exactly what kind of man Michael Thompson is and what kind of woman Jessica Williams is. And they'll have to live with the reputations they created through their own selfish and hurtful choices for the rest of their lives.